Hi guys, this is video number 3 in the series of user registration and login example. In video number 1, I have created a user interface for a user login and registration page. In video number 2, I've connected all of these views together and to make it work. And user registration details like email and password we had to store locally on the device to make it all work. And in this video number 3, I'm going to actually send user details, username and password to the server side PHP script and store details in the database, and then for the login page we will actually also make it work with server side to read data from the database and see if user is registered or not. Okay, so let's begin. I have created, for this video, I have created a new blog post. If you go to Swift Developer blog, the blog post is called Store User Information in MySQL Database. I might actually rename it to a different one, but here it is. So normally, when you work on user registration, I follow the following steps. So first, user needs to fill in registration form, and then mobile app submits information to PHP script. PHP script accepts user details and store it in MySQL database, and then sends back response to mobile app. So let's assume we have a database, and in that database we have a table called users. My table is very simple. I have only two fields there, which is username, user email and password. I have it here. I just copied this text, so I'll show you. I have only one table in my database. It is called users, and if I describe it, it has only two fields, user email and user password. And if I select from users, it is currently empty. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, for me to write business logic on the server side, I use PHP, and I'm going to create 4 files. First file, connection PHP. This file will contain database access details. MySQL data access object will contain all SQL queries. User register PHP will contain actually business logic to run, to connect to the database and execute SQL queries and register user details. And user login business logic is to check if user with provided username and password exists in our database. So let's continue. The very first file, connection PHP, I call it con. Basically, it's a separate PHP file, which is called con PHP, and it contains 4 static variables. The host of your database, normally it's localhost, but it could be an IP address or domain name of your host. The user name that you use to connect to the database, password, and database name itself. I like to keep it as a separate file. Next file you want to create, I call it MySQL DAO, stands for MySQL Data Access Object. And this class, this is a PHP class, which contains which contains functions that allow me to connect to the database, read information from the database, and write information to the database. So I'll quickly walk you through. So basically, this is constructor, and then this function is to open connection to MySQL database, to return connection, to close connection when we are done working, and this function is to get user details. It accepts email address, and here's the SQL query itself. select all from user details where user email equals email. This function is to get user details using email and password, like two fields. And this function is to register user with email and password. Now, these functions are all simplified. For example, in this function, I am inserting into table users only two fields, which are user email and user password. In your case, a registration form can be a lot more lengthy, like you can have first name, last name, country, phone number, and so on. So if you need to add more fields, you can add more into SQL query itself, and then into a prepared statement here as well. So if you have more fields, like S stands for string value, my email and password are string, but if you have other data types, you'll have to specify which ones are here. Okay, so that was about database connection class. And the next one is user registration PHP. So this class, this PHP script we are going to use, is going to be the very first one we are going to use. So basically, for this script to work, for user PHP to work, it needs connection class, because that file contains username and password and the name of the database. The second one we are requiring is the one that contains SQL queries. And below we basically accept HTTP post request for email and password. So these are the two values my mobile application is going to send when user taps on register button. I will send email and password, and then I will check to make sure that email and password are not empty. And if one of these fields is empty, I'm going to return an array with two values, error and the message, and in a JSON format. And here's how I use my MySQL database connection class. I create an instance of the class, then I open connection to my MySQL database, and I get user details by email address. Now, if this user details, if my function returns anything, meaning if user exists, I will return a JSON encoded message saying user already exists, and I will return I do not need to continue. But if this is empty, I will fall through and will register a user. But before I do that, I will use MD5 to create a kind of secure password. I don't like when password is stored as plain text, like anyone can read it, even I can see passwords that users create. So for me and for anybody else, for database administrator not to be able to read user password, I use PHP function MD5 to make it secure. And then I call register function and pass on email and password. And basically, if the result is success, if that works, I return success and the message user is registered, which is going to be encoded as JSON. I've tested this code, it works, that's why I put it there. But if for some reason it doesn't work for you, please comment, let me know, and I will check it right away. Okay, so let's jump to mobile app and come back to this login script later on. So here's my mobile application project, and first we will go to register page view controller. Again, if you did not watch video number 1 and 2, you'll have to, because I have created this project in these two videos. So I will go to first, we will make user register, and I'm going to register page view controller, and I'm going to register button tap function. So when user taps on the button, I get user email and password, I check for empty fields, and if fields are empty, I display an alert. If fields are empty or password does not match, I displayed an alert message. But if everything is correct, I store data. So this code I don't need anymore. I'm not going to store it locally. I'm going to send it to my PHP script on server side. So basically, I will delete this one, and I will actually delete this code as well. I'm not going to display this message at this moment. For me to make this video shorter, I have prepared a few scripts. So this one is for me to send data to the server side. So I will create a URL. This URL is going to be my URL to my server, but this is you need to replace it with a URL to your PHP script, and I'm calling user register PHP. This is going to be HTTP post request, and I'm passing only two parameters, which are user email and user password. They come, user email and user password come from user email text field and user password text field. Okay, so and then I need to execute this task. So I'll quickly grab the code I have typed. Okay, here I have a separate video that shows how to execute HTTP post request. You can find it in the list of videos that I have earlier created, or you can pause this video and go through this script. Well, basically, it executes the task, and when response arrives, because it is JSON respond, I need to convert it into JSON, and I know that my PHP script will send me status field. I will switch back to my register page, user register. If everything is okay, or if there is error, there will be an array with two values, status and message. So I get status and I print it out just for me to see. But if status is equal to success, I grab the message value. The message that was sent, I store into message to display variable, and then I use it in my alert message. Here's I create UI alert controller, and I display it and I dismiss it when user taps on OK button. Again, this code, you should have this code from the previous video. The only difference is that for this alert message to work, I need to put it into, I need to dispatch a separate thread on the main queue, because this task, the HTTP request, is going to be sent on a separate thread, not to block main thread of your mobile app. So for this UI alert controller to work, make sure you put it into, you run it on the main thread, and then it should work. So let me run this example and see if it works. Okay, so I will go to my database. I will select from users. Now we have empty table. I'm going to register a new user. User is going to be Sergey at Erslandia, and the password is going to be 1234. Register. User is registered. Very good. So let me run a select query. Here we go. We have username, user email is Sergey@Ruslandia, and we have user password, which is an MD5 value. Here we go. So if I try to register again, Sergey@Ruslandia 1234 with the same email address and same password, it says user already exists, and it did not insert a new value. Here we go. So this one works. So now I will go to user login, and user login script, PHP script, has a very similar business logic. First, for it to work, it needs to require a connection file and MySQL data access file, put them into same folder next to user login. Like all these files need to be together, unless you move it to different folders, but then you have to provide a different path in here. So it accepts accept post, HTTP post request with email and password, and then I check, make sure email and password is not empty. Now I need, for me to be able to compare my password, I have to convert it in using MD5 again. I connect to the database and I call get user details with password. Get user details with password function. And I'll scroll up. We will go get user details with password. So this is the one. And it says select ID and user email from users where email is equal to mail and password is equal to password. Okay, so it will return ID and email. And if it's not empty, if a user was found, I return status success and message user is registered. And then this array I encode as JSON and I send it back to my mobile app. Else, I put status error and message user is not found in our database, and I close connection. So let me run this example, and for it to work, I go to login view controller file. Again, when user taps on the button, on the login button, I read user email and password. This code is no longer needed because I used to store it locally, and comparison is no longer needed because server side is going to tell us whether user exists or not. So I've deleted this and I leave only user email and password. So now I need Swift code that sends HTTP post request to a server side to a login PHP script. Okay, so I will grab the script from a file that I have prepared a little bit earlier and we'll walk you through. So before I send this HTTP request, I need to check if username and password are not empty, and if empty, I don't want to do anything, or you may actually display an alert message here. Okay, so this HTTP request is going to be sent to my user login PHP. Make sure you put your domain name here, and it's going to be HTTP post request. And again, I'm sending email and password as HTTP post request, and then I execute task, and I receive data as JSON. So I will convert it. I will convert JSON to an as dictionary, and then it will have status. And if status is equal to success, I need to set if it's success, I basically user exists, and if it's not success, then user was not found in the database. But if it is success, if my PHP script returns status as success, I can set a flag in my mobile application that user is logged in, so I don't need to ask user to log in again. Okay, so I use user defaults, just like in my previous video, to set a boolean value that user is logged in now, and don't ask user for username and password anymore, and then I dismiss view controller. Okay, so I will run this script now. So this is going to be login button. Okay, so if I log in with email address and password that does not exist, it's not letting me through. But if I use password 1234, the one I used to register with, it works. The result is success, and I got access to my protected page. So tap on logout button to log out. Everything works as expected. And try to log in again. Sergey at erslandia.com 1234. Log in. Here we go. Works. This is it. If something was not clear, please comment. I will try to edit my video if it's possible, but if not, I will most probably reply you here in this blog post by editing some of the scripts or adding some of the scripts, and it has a discuss commenting system, so we can discuss your situation if it doesn't work for some reason for you. Thank you very much. I hope it was helpful. Once again, let's stay in touch. Let me know if everything is okay. Thank you.